Christus Hypercubus is the seventh full-length album from Messiah, a Bar, Switzerland-based quintet, and one that has kind of been an extreme metal legend for a lot of people in the underground for a very long time. They formed back in 40 years ago in 1984, and they've evolved incredibly, mostly throughout the 80s and until probably the first 10 years until 1994 when they released a record that was just kind of groove metal with the singer from Therion on it, and they moved on and came back. I believe it was about 2014 or 2017, somewhere like that, and eventually put out a full length that was representative of their sound. It felt like it was completely them, and that was per the lineup from Choir of Horrors. It's one of my favorite albums in general. It's a death thrash classic. It definitely bringing back that lineup kind of spoke to their intent going into Fragment, and it ended up being a great record. They had sort of an abundance of ideas put into that. They had an EP that overflowed from it. You know, Messiah were back in a very big way, and everyone was happy about it, I think, that was interested in classic thrash metal, death thrash metal, and more modern groove-oriented styles of death metal as well. They've always had a little bit of a groove metal touch to some of their work because of the unique rhythms that they've always turned out, especially beyond the 80s, which was more of a formative extreme metal, early death metal kind of feeling for extreme thrash. With all that precedence here, we get a seventh full-length album, and there's a lot going on here. So first we'll just cut to a song, and then I'll kind of get to what's important, what isn't, and why all that adds up to a pretty solid record here. So there's a couple of big changes here, especially in lineup. Unfortunately, the vocalist for their Choir of Horrors and Beyond era through Fragment unfortunately passed away in 2022 and had left the band in 2021. So we get a new vocalist, a fellow from, I believe, a progressive death metal band named Taste of Tears, Marcus Seebach. He's in some other bands as well from, I think, a similar region of Switzerland, and they've added guitarist V.O. Pulver from Poltergeist and Gerd into the band as kind of co-writing songs from a distance. I think this is our first time doing long-distance songwriting together, and he'd played with the band. He'd produced the previous record and some of their other work. They've known each other for a long time. He's a natural sort of addition here. The big change is that he's writing songs for the band now, and you'll definitely feel him pushing a bit more speed and a bit more groove into some of these songs. You can kind of know his signature from his past work. The overall effect of all these changes with this new vocalist and this additional songwriter is a faster, heavier record. And actually, it's kind of surprising that they led with kind of a lumbering, epic, almost doomed thrash feeling on the last record. And I liked that it was kind of these long form involved pieces that produced a lot of their own crazed atmosphere. And on this record, they cut back a little bit closer to that Choir of Horrors goal of syncing up with faster and exciting songs to start, and then developing the weird stuff more in the second half of the record. And that kind of sums up how this worked out. I kind of comment that, maybe using scratch programmed drums, because the drummer was injured for a while, kind of helped them inject more speed into their work ahead of time. And so maybe he had to catch up because there's a lot more bursts of speed on this record, and that really matters when it's a death thrash metal band focused on groove. And you'll feel the groove metal effects through like refrains and verses on the first couple of songs, but that's also where most of the speed arrives. So it's a dynamic that works for Messiah, and it works in their discography. But if you're looking for like a return to him, to a Brommelin, you probably get more songs in that style, in that feeling on the previous record, Fragment, although that is more of a modern production value, just like this is. It's a very polished, clean, and very readily readable sort of heavy metal today. That kind of takes me to one of my main pluses here, I guess, is that the bass guitarist is not only a very fine performer and bass player, but we get to hear a lot more of the finger work or the intricacies of the bass here, because the bass has been emphasized so well on this production value. It sounds insane. Like it's almost like almost like a tech thrash band. Like I mentioned Coroner in here, I think, a later Coroner, where I just feel like there's an extra touch to the bass in all these songs that helps us wheel through these pieces. And maybe we heard that on like a remastered version of Choir of Horrors when the bass was a little bit more pronounced. But here it feels like it's really much more active and complementary to the rhythm guitar notes overall. To me, it's a more dynamic record. It's a faster record. It's less self-referential and willing to be just a little bit weird. Like there's a couple songs on here that are kind of strange in the way that they play out, and I like that about it because there was always an extra personality for Messiah. They were never just another band. They were kind of an innovator and an early out there sort of group in the realm of evil and weird thrash metal, and that personality still carries through here in a strong way. It's one of the reasons why they're one of my favorite groups, and in the death thrash arena. So for me, that gets a very high recommendation. Part of that is, of course, bias. Yes, I've been a huge fan of this band for over 20 years. This is a very important band for getting me into certain types of metal, and that's not guaranteed to give them a good score. If it was bad, it was bad. You might recall like Loud Blast records. Some of those are not very good, but overall, this is definitely a fine showing. There's no missteps here. They've always been very tasteful about what they put on tape. I don't think that every song here is as important as one another. Some of them just kind of fling by. That's the sensation of a metal record. It's a thrash record too at heart. So for me, that all worked, and it made for a great listen. It's still sticking with me in that respect. So check it out for yourself on March 1st when it releases tomorrow, and go ahead and read my review.